Hello and welcome to the YYC Soccer Podcast. My name is Jason Kmet and my co-host is Scott Strasser. Hi, Scott.
Hey, Jason. 8 episodes in, I believe. This is going pretty well, and I'm happy to be doing another episode.
Yeah, no, it seems like we've kind of got it down into a bit of a routine, and it feels pretty good. So let's move on with this 8th episode. And if you are a new listener, what is the YYC Soccer Podcast all about, Scott? I love getting you to explain this every episode.
Yeah, so we are going to focus on soccer in Calgary at the amateur, collegiate, and professional levels. We talk about the teams and the players from the city's soccer community, from the grassroots and amateur leagues up to the university and professional level.
And this week we're going to focus on Calgary Foothills. We're going to provide a bit of an update. They have clubs in both the men's and women's side of League One Alberta. And on the women's side of AMSL, they're going to have a club as well. We have 2 interviews with people from Foothills. We have Jay Wheeldon. He talks about the men's team. And we have Sarah Kinzner, and she'll be on talking about the women's team.
Yeah, so I guess it only took us 8 episodes to interview both Wheeldon siblings. If we can get Tommy Sr. on the podcast at any point, we'll have the Wheeldon soccer trifecta. As for Sarah Kinzner, that's another great local soccer success story. And it was neat to hear from her about her experiences and her career thus far, especially when she was talking to us about playing in Colorado and Budapest. But I will let her expand on that during the interview.
Let's talk a little bit about last weekend's home opener for the Cavs. It was a beautiful day. There was a big crowd, but I think the final score was a touch disappointing.
Yeah, the score was disappointing, and also the manner in which the second half played out. It was a fairly uncharacteristic Cavalry home performance. If you've been watching this team for the last 4 years, they were pinned back a lot in their own half in the second half and struggled to retain possession and seemed to be relying on long balls a lot to relieve that pressure. Valor did play well, but it was really odd to see a visiting team kind of take a stranglehold on the game at Atco Field. Usually you see Cavalry doing that.
I think I'm pretty much agreeing with those comments at this point. I thought the early parts of the second half, the team, didn't look like what I typically expect from the Cavs. But anyway, it's early in the season and they still got a point out of it. I do kind of like that line in Ted Lasso at one point where he says, sometimes a tie feels like a win and sometimes it feels like a loss. But I think at the end of the day, this one kind of does feel a bit like a loss.
Yeah, whereas Cavalry's first couple ties of the season against Forge and Pacific, those probably felt closer to wins given that they were on the road playing tough teams, playing Valor at home. Valor is a team that Cavalry has tended to have a lot of success over in the past few years. I do recall Tommy Wheeldon Jr. was definitely none too pleased during the post-game press conference, and he talked about the need to pass the ball around. That's a direct quote. More in training this week leading up to their next game. I actually wrote a piece just the other day for AFTN about some of my takeaways of Cavalry's games so far, and one of the points I included was about that lack of chemistry that the team has developed thus far, which was apparent in just their lack of ability to kind of string meaningful possession and string passes together in that second half. But another point was the lack of veteran experience this season following the retirement of Mason Trafford, right? It's a really young Cavalry roster. The average age, according to Transfermarkt, is 24.7. And there's only 2 players who are in their 30s, and they're only just in their 30s. Ben Fisk and Charlie Trafford are both 30 at the moment. So I feel like there may be a lack of old heads or those kind of grizzled veterans who are able to kind of help manage, help with that in-game management and seeing out a result, because Cavalry has been up in all 3 of the league games they played in so far, and all 3 of those have ended in draws. So, yeah, there are a few key missing ingredients at the moment. It's hard to exactly put my finger on it when I watch them, but No, I'm keen to see them, I think, pick up their performance, and I'm sure they'll be very keen to climb the table in these next few weeks.
This weekend, they're off to Vancouver, and they're going to play the first ever Vancouver FC home match. That should be really interesting. I'm actually really curious to see what this stadium that's been built in a couple months, what it looks like.
Yeah, I just saw an update on Twitter before we started this, and I think, it's pretty much ready, but it does look like a work in progress still. So I don't know how much they'll be able to do in the last 2 or 3 days here, but yeah, it was put together very quick, very piecemeal, it seems. I'm curious to see how Cavalry does against Vancouver, who I admittedly haven't watched very much of yet this season. Vancouver FC in general are obviously a brand new club and still somewhat of an unknown entity, although some of their players are admittedly quite familiar to people who watch the CPL. But considering it's their very first home game, you can bet that Vancouver will be up for this one, and they'll have hopefully a big crowd cheering them on, and it'll be a tough condition for Cavalry to go and get 3 points out of.
Yeah, I think Vancouver will be pretty excited about playing their first home match, like you said. And yeah, it should be interesting. I haven't really watched any of their matches yet this year, but I agree. They've got some familiar names on the club, and yeah, it should be a fun one to watch. The match will be on Sunday at 5 p.m. It'll be available on One Soccer. One more question I was going to ask about that upcoming match. Have you heard anything about Bradley Camden? Could he possibly be dressing for this upcoming game? Is he training at this point with the club, as far as you know?
I imagine so, but I haven't determined that for myself. I did ask about Bradley in last week's pregame press conference if he'd be playing against Valor, and the response was that he had only just landed in Calgary like the night before or something like that. So he was going to need at the very least a couple of days to acclimatize, get over jet lag, that sort of thing. I do imagine, though, that he's been at the very least training with the team this season as long as he's fit, which I believe he is. So, yeah, I would hope to see him play on Sunday, but I guess we'll have to wait and see.
So let's go back to talking about Foothills, and let's start off with running our interview with Jay Wheeldon. He is the technical director and the head coach of the Foothills men's League One Alberta team. I'd like to welcome Jay Wheeldon to the podcast today. Jay is the technical director at Foothills and is leading the men's team this summer in both competitions, right? Is it both League One and AMSL?
Yeah, I'm doing the Calgary Foothills League One team, and I'll do the Cavalry Under-21 AMSL team.
Well, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
So we had a few questions about the team, the men's team this year. The team hasn't really played in a formalized league structure really since the pandemic, because USL kind of ended at the pandemic point. What's it been like to play a series of friendlies over the past few years and not to be in a specific competition?
Yeah, it's obviously been tough in that sense, but our goal was to ensure we kept, the high performance players in the game. So we didn't want to shut down our program through, obviously the pandemic, then coming back in and obviously not going back into the USL. So we had a vision about 3-4 years ago. We wanted to Canadianize everything. And with the success of League One, in both genders, we felt it was important that, Alberta got in that. And obviously working with Alberta Soccer, we've been able to secure that. And obviously this year, for the first time from a Foothills perspective, it's nice to play in a league.
Yeah, and elaborating on that, Jay, how do you kind of prepare for entry into a new league like League One Alberta?
Yeah, as you can imagine, it's been a lot of work behind the scenes. The club's involved. We've been pushing it for a while. There's been a lot of preparation that's got into it. Alberta Soccer have done a lot of work as well to help support that. And I think everybody's just kind of excited because once the first ball's kicked, everyone can start enjoying the football again.
I think you kind of already elaborated on this a little bit, but I thought I would ask anyway. Did you guys ever look into rejoining USL at any point after the pandemic before this League One opportunity became available? What were the deciding factors on not going forward in that direction?
Yeah, I mean it was looked at, but obviously for us it's a North American league, ran by the United States pretty much. So we've had division like a lot of clubs. You look at TSS as well in BC. I think we wanted to make sure we have something in Canada, and with the success of obviously CPL and on the female side, currently it's UWS, but with Project 8 on the horizon, if we can get the full Canadian pyramid for players coming through and current players like Sarah that are playing, it's an exciting pathway for everyone. So having it within Canada for us was massively important.
So it's still kind of early preseason, Jay, but how would you kind of describe the new look team's playing style and strategy? We're starting to see those players pop up on social media. How are they all gelling, and how do you feel the first few sessions have been?
Yeah, good. I mean, the good news is I had a lot of the boys last year for the Calgary under-20s in AMSL. So I've worked with a lot of boys before. A lot of the boys will have come through, obviously, the Foothills Academy. Now, our primary goal is also still to develop young players, because winning for us is on field. Like in any league we go in, we want to win, and we've had success of winning. But winning to us is in different ways. Winning to us is also seeing Vic Lattori play, Dominic Zator play, Joel Waterman go to the World Cup. That's also winning. So we'll be a young team. We'll be energetic. We'll have a lot of the ball. We'll encourage that. And we'll be exciting. We've got a lot of pace, and we want to play some front foot football.
On the topic of the team this year, I know that on social media you've been releasing some of the new signings. Are there any players in particular that you want to make note of, veteran players, leaders on the team?
Yeah, we've still got announced 3 or 4 signings, which I'll keep on the wraps, and they're 3 or 4 very, very good players. So we're looking at a squad of about 20, and what's good about it, we've got some young and hungry players that have not tasted professional football yet and want to get into that, and we've got some players that have and want to have that second opportunity. So you look at players like Max Pipegrass, who was 2 years ago, he was involved with the Canada under-20 team, and he was involved there. He made his professional debut for Calgary in 2021 as a 17-year-old. So we've still got high hopes. You look at Sky Rogers and Marcus Kaiser last year, both made their professional debuts. So yeah, we feel we've got a lot of depth, and we've got some young and hungry players that want to get into that next level, and that next level would be CPL or beyond.
Yeah, definitely seeing the University of Calgary and Mount Royal connection as well, I've noticed. But
yeah, absolutely. It's important to work with local universities, and with Brendan and Ryan, I have a good relationship with both, and they've helped and even Connor with SAIT, they've helped promote players.
For sure. Next question for you, Jay, is we've noticed, like with the schedule, the first match is, I believe, at Macron Performance Center. After that, the rest of the men's matches appear to be at Broadview. So what kind of determined those venues? And do you feel like that's a good kind of fit for the team?
I think so. I think as we know, Broadview is one of the better places to play football in the city. It's right downtown, beautiful view. We looked at other areas to play, and Broadview tends to start mid-May, so May 12th for us. We were hosting. It's nice to be able to host here, but I think it's important that we're outside for the other 3 games, and Broadview is a brilliant location and a lovely grass field, and it enables us to put on a nice show.
So on that topic of putting on a show, what can we expect as fans when it comes to watching home game, the home matches? What about game day experience? Yeah,
we got a full match day on League One. It might not be as big as our UWS and USL game day experience in terms of halftime shows and things like that, but we'll have a VIP area for our sponsors. We'll have a supporters area. There'll be a lot of, obviously, our Foothills kids that we want to be there. Certainly a lot of our youth players that will be at the games. And it's obviously free admission for the youth players, which is important. As again, it's growing that pathway. But as a game day experience, yeah, it'll be ran properly. We'll have staff here, volunteers, everything will be organised. And again, very similar to that kind of USL, UWS kind of game day feel.
Last question I have for you, Jay, is I know you kind of mentioned this in your first answer or two, but what would you say the overall goals are for this season? And what would success look like for you?
Success, firstly, for us is providing a pathway for the players to get to that next level. That's a huge part of winning for us, and that's what kind of keeps us driving and hungry. Second part, those that know me, I like to do both, and I believe in both. You can develop, and by develop, you got to perform. So you want to win as well. So I'm not afraid to say that we're in it to develop, but we're also in it to win. So that's part of developing. So I want to provide help, or we want to help provide that pathway for players to move forward, but we also want to be at the table when it gets to the final at the end of the season.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a good place to end off with the interview, Jay, but thank you so much again for making yourself available to take all of our questions today.
No problem, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now let's get to our interview with Sarah Kinzner. She's the captain of the Foothills women's team that plays in UWS and in League One Alberta. I'd like to welcome Sarah Kinzner to the podcast. Sarah is with the Foothills women's team this year, competing in UWS. And Sarah, why don't you just give us a little bit of a rundown? I think probably a lot of our listeners will be pretty familiar with some of your history, but why don't you give us a little bit of your background of your career?
Yeah, so I grew up playing soccer with the Calgary Foothills Soccer Club. And then from there, I was in and out with the national team, going to youth camps and youth tournaments. So I played in the Under-17 FIFA World Cup, the Under-20 World Cup, and the U23 Pan Am Games here in Canada. And then after graduating high school, I went to Colorado and played soccer down there for university. And then after graduating, I went overseas and played pro soccer in Budapest, Hungary. So that was an awesome experience as well. And then over the years, I've just been always a part of the UWS team in the summertime in Calgary. And it's always a really fun league to play in.
And would you mind kind of elaborating, Sarah, on your experiences in both Colorado and Budapest? I think a lot of people would find that really cool.
Yeah, so down in Colorado, I was based in Boulder, which is kind of similar to Banff here in the mountains. It's beautiful. But definitely I was intimidated going down there, leaving Canada and going to a new country. But once I got there, it was an awesome experience. Loved playing with my teammates. We had amazing facilities to get the best training in and fitness and all of that. We played in the Pac-12 league, which is one of the top leagues, I'd say, in the States, and played against world-class players such as Katarina Macario at Stanford and some other really big-name girls. So altogether, it was a great opportunity to play against the top players and gain some experience. And yeah, so that was awesome. And then playing in Budapest, again, pretty similar, where intimidating to leave and go overseas. But once I was there, the training was awesome. Sadly, it was cut short because COVID hit. But in my few months that I was there, it's just getting comfortable being uncomfortable in those environments and really just putting yourself out there and believing that you're there for a reason, and just showing what you can, and just enjoying the process the whole way.
Actually, I want to ask about the Budapest. What club did you play for there?
It was called Ferencváros, FTC. Okay,
actually, I've been to Hungary, and I have a little bit of familiarity with a couple of the teams there. In fact, when I was there, I actually even went to a men's game. It was MTK was playing, and that was a very interesting experience going to that, an older style stadium there. But anyway, it would have been a very interesting experience.
Yeah, definitely. No, I went to watch one of the men's games, and the atmosphere there was just incredible. The fans are so passionate, so it's exciting to see. And hopefully coming up in 2025 with that Project 8 Professional Women's League, we can hopefully get something similar and start to inspire those younger generations.
I want to ask here about Foothills again. you're going to be on the UWS team, correct? Are you going to play any role in the League One team at all, or are you strictly going to be on the UWS?
So we did just find out that we are allowed to play in both League One and UWS. So I think there will definitely be a handful of us girls playing in both leagues just to like get as much experience as we can.
So this year, if you're playing in both leagues, I wanted to ask, are there any particular opponents or matches that you're looking forward to going down to the States or heading up to Edmonton?
Yeah, well, I'm really excited always for in UWS, the Santa Clarita game. We always have such a good rivalry going with that team. It's always a battle. Every year it seems like it could be anyone's game. So that one's always a big one to look forward to. That's always kind of on my radar.
What are some of the challenges that you expect the team to face this year, both on and off the field, playing in multiple leagues, really, when it comes right down to it, even when you go all the way down to AMSL, which I know you're not going to be involved in per se, but playing in League One and UWS, what are some of the things you're looking for in that way?
Yeah, I think one thing with transitioning between the two teams is trying to get that team chemistry going. But the good thing is so many of us girls have played together over the years, like with youth teams and growing up, so that chemistry is already kind of there. And I think it's just managing all the different players who are at different stages in their careers. Like, for instance, me, Tori, Sarah Dilling, Maggie, we're all some of the older players who haven't been in competitions as much recently. And then we got some young girls coming from like high school. So it's just managing where everyone's at kind of in their life and all bonding together within the environment.
Mm-hmm. And on that note, Sarah, I mean, could you kind of talk about your role as like a captain and a leader on this team and how you'd kind of describe your leadership style?
Yeah, I'd say my leadership style, I always just try to be very positive out there and really encourage the younger girls to try new things and don't be afraid because I think that's the way you're going to learn the best is to make some mistakes and then realize what you did and just keep trying it over and over again. And then I feel like I also try to show leadership just through like actions and trying to always do the right things to show the younger girls maybe things that they can be doing on and off the pitch to prepare for all the games and be at their best level they can be.
Okay, let's wrap it up here. I think I've got one final question for you. What are the team's overall goals for this season, and what will a successful season look like?
So I think our overall goal is definitely to win. Last year we made it to that national championship final, and it was pretty gutting to make it the whole way there undefeated, and then to lose 2-1 in the final. It was very tough, but also like so much to be proud of over the whole season. But we're definitely hoping to win this time. But it starts with the first game on May 28th. We just have to like take it game by game and just keep pushing every single game. And yeah.
Thank you very much, Sarah, for being available today to answer our questions and talk about the upcoming campaign. We do appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me.
Thanks again to Jay Wheeldon and Sarah Kinzner for taking the time to do the interviews today. Any thoughts, Scott?
Well, we're obviously just days away now from League One Alberta kicking off, so it will be interesting to see the caliber of that league compared to the previous USL 2 or PDL games. As for Foothills WFC, their season is still quite a ways away, so there's still a bit of time before that league kicks off at the end of May. But considering Foothills' record in UWS last year, a perfect regular season record and yet again falling just short in the championship game. They're obviously a talented team with a high pedigree, and I'd encourage local soccer fans in Calgary to get out to those games once they kick off. I'm expecting a similarly strong showing from the team this year. They've been consistently strong ever since their inception in 2017, I think it was, and much like Cavalry on the men's side, they've just fallen short of that championship hurdle a couple of times, but I know they'll be gunning for that.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why they won't have a similarly dominant season in UWS. And the question really will be is, can they make it all the way to that final and then and finish it? Because that was really the only thing missing out. And I don't think a lot has changed on this team overall that would make you think that they're not going to be at that level again. Any thoughts about League One Alberta or anything else we've talked about this week?
Not so much League One Alberta, but I know we haven't talked too much yet about the Alberta Major Soccer League, which is also going to be kicking off pretty soon. So looking forward to maybe the chance to talk about that league a little bit and what to expect from it. So yeah, there's, it's early May when we're recording this, and that's pretty much when the outdoor soccer season in Calgary gets into full swing. I've seen a lot of minor soccer teams practicing at the field near my house, and it just feels like there's a lot of soccer in the air.
Yeah, I'd agree. And the fields are starting to green up a little bit. And Jay made the comment about how Broadview really isn't ready until about the middle of May. So I actually was by there a couple days ago, and the pitch is looking like it's pretty close to being ready. So that'll be good. Okay, well, thank you for listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast. You can subscribe to this podcast using all the usual podcasting platforms. Head over to our website at yycsoccer.com for more information about our podcast and to leave a question or a comment. You can also follow us on Twitter at YYC Soccer 403. Thanks for listening.